as a ghostly wail crackled through the frost-rimed radio headset, cutting through the howling wind of a Belgian blizzard. Private Edward Eddie Crow froze, his breath catching in the frigid air of a snowbound foxhole. It was December 1944, in the heart of the Ardennes forest near Bastogne, where the Battle of the Bulge raged with unrelenting ferocity, encircling the 101st Airborne Division in a desperate stand against a German offensive. Eddie, a 22-year-old radioman from Boston, had joined the paratroopers seeking purpose after his brother's death at Normandy, but nothing prepared him for this frozen hell. His sharp mind, honed by a childhood love of puzzles, now wrestled with a signal that shouldn't exist, a faint, pleading voice in broken English, calling for help from a village marked as obliterated on every map. Bastogne was a crucible of ice and fire, the town's skeletal remains shrouded in snow, its surrounding woods a labyrinth of danger where German tanks prowled like wolves. Eddie's unit, part of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, clung to a perimeter under constant shelling, their radios the lifeline to distant Allied commands. At 5:10, with wire-rimmed glasses fogged by cold, Eddie hunched over his SCR 536, fingers numb despite threadbare gloves, decoding messages through static. His pack held a worn photo of his family, his mother's smile, his brother's cocky grin, a reminder of why he endured. The signal came again, a woman's voice, urgent yet distorted. "Help us, trapped, Saint-Lô." The name jolted him. Saint-Lô was a ghost village, razed months ago, its coordinates a void on their charts. Eddie's foxhole mate, Corporal Daniel Danny Walsh, a wiry New Yorker with a quick wit dulled by frostbite, scoffed at the sound. "Ghosts don't use radios, kid. Probably Kraut's messing with us." But Eddie's gut churned. This wasn't a trick. The voice carried a raw desperation that echoed his own buried grief. Their platoon leader, Lieutenant Paul Gorman, a stern but fair officer from Ohio, had ordered strict radio discipline. No deviations, no risks. Yet Eddie couldn't shake the plea, its cadence haunting him like a half-remembered dream. Against protocol, he jotted the signal's frequency, his pencil trembling in the sub-zero dusk. The first strong event unfolded as Eddie ventured to report the anomaly. Slipping through the snow-laden pines to Gorman's command post, a shattered barn barely holding against the wind, he overheard hushed arguments. Supplies were dwindling, medics rationed bandages, and morale teetered. Gorman, his face gaunt under a wool cap, dismissed the signal as interference. "Focus on real threats, Crow. We're surrounded, and the brass needs us holding this line." But as Eddie returned, a sudden threat materialized. A German recon patrol, shadows moving through the blizzard, their muffled footsteps crunching closer. He dove into a ditch, heart pounding, as Walsh hissed a warning from nearby. The patrol passed mere feet away, their silhouettes ghostly in the snow, unaware of the paratroopers' presence. The close call amplified Eddie's unease. Danger was everywhere, and the signal's mystery felt like a beacon in the chaos. Back in the foxhole, Eddie wrestled with a moral dilemma: obey orders and ignore the voice, or investigate, risking his unit's safety. The psychological tension gnawed at him. Memories of his brother's unheeded leaders from the front, "Don't play hero, Eddie," clashing with the instinct to act. He confided in Walsh, whose skepticism softened slightly. If it's real, it's someone's kid or wife out there. But if it's a trap, he trailed off, the unspoken stakes heavy. Eddie's mind raced, piecing together the signal's pattern. It repeated every 15 minutes, a disciplined distress call that suggested survivors, not soldiers. But Saint-Lou's erasure from maps hinted at something darker, perhaps a forgotten outpost or worse. A dramatic twist deepened the intrigue. Rummaging through his pack, Eddie found an old intelligence report, crumpled and overlooked, mentioning Saint-Lô as a suspected resistance hideout before its destruction. Could survivors still linger? The discovery fueled his resolve, but also danger. Pursuing it meant defying Gorman, who'd already warned of court-martial for stragglers. As night fell, the temperature plummeted, frost creeping over the radio like doubt over Eddie's heart. He tuned in again, the voice clearer now. Saint-Loup. Cellar. Please. It was a woman, her tone laced with exhaustion, stirring visions of his mother waiting for news that never came. The squad's dynamics shifted, introducing key players. Private Henry Hank Larson, a stoic Minnesotan with a sharpshooter's eye, offered cautious support. If it's real, we can't just sit here. But Sergeant Victor Malone, a grizzled veteran from Chicago who'd seen too many ambushes, shut it down. You're dreaming, Crow. Radios don't raise the dead. The division sowed tension, the group's unity fraying like their frostbitten gear. Eddie's choice loomed: report the signal again and push for a recon mission, or stay silent, burying the mystery. He opted to act, slipping to Gorman's post once more, only to find the lieutenant coordinating a defense against a rumored Panzer advance. Gorman's eyes narrowed at Eddie's insistence. You're risking lives for a ghost story. Prove it's worth it. As Eddie returned, a powerful event heightened the stakes. The signal changed, now including coordinates faintly audible through static, pinpointing a spot 3 miles north, deep in contested woods. The discovery was a double-edged sword, a lead but a perilous one, requiring a trek through enemy lines. Walsh, reluctantly convinced, agreed to join if Gorman approved. But as they prepared to pitch the mission, a chilling sound erupted, artillery shells screaming overhead, slamming nearby, shaking the frozen earth. The barrage pinned them in their foxholes, the radio crackling with the woman's voice one last time before static overwhelmed it. Was it cut off by damage or design? The cliffhanger crystallized as Eddie, clutching the coordinates, spotted movement in the trees, not Germans, but a lone figure, cloaked in civilian rags, darting towards Saint-Loup's direction before vanishing into the blizzard. Friend, foe, or phantom? The squad froze, Malone's rifle trained on the shadows, while Eddie's heart thundered. The signal's plea echoed in his mind, a call he couldn't ignore, yet pursuing it meant leading his men into the unknown, against orders, into a storm where death waited. As snow buried their tracks, Eddie faced the abyss of his choice, the whisper in the static pulling him toward a truth or a trap that could redefine their war. As the blizzard's icy claws tore at their frost-crusted uniforms, Private Eddie Crow's radio crackled with a fresh burst of static, the ghostly voice from Saint-Loup fading into an ominous silence that deepened the dread coiling in his chest. The Ardennes forest, surrounding Bastogne, December 1944, was a frozen wasteland where the Battle of the Bulge ground on, the 101st Airborne Division's perimeter shrinking under German pressure. Eddie's discovery of the mysterious signal, a plea from a razed village, had ignited a moral firestorm, pitting his instinct to save against the rigid orders holding their line. The foxhole's confines, barely shielding him from the wind's howl, mirrored the tightening grip of doubt. Follow the coordinates into the unknown, or bury the call and risk abandoning souls in need. Eddie's squad, a patchwork of survivors hardened by jumps into Normandy and Holland, teetered on the edge of fracture. Corporal Danny Walsh, his foxhole partner, leaned closer, his New York bravado fraying under the cold. You're chasing ghosts, Eddie. That signal's probably just kraut bait. But his eyes betrayed curiosity, a flicker of hope in the endless white. Lieutenant Paul Gorman, their Ohio-born leader, had doubled down on discipline after Eddie's report, his voice sharp in the command barn. No wild chases, Crow. We're stretched thin. Yet Eddie's mind, wired for puzzles, couldn't let go. The voice's cadence, its precise repetition, suggested a desperate human hand, not a trap. His brother's last letter, "Don't lose yourself, kid," weighed heavy, a reminder of promises unkept. New faces sharpened the conflict. Private Marie Dubois, a French-American medic with a fierce gaze and a knack for languages, joined the squad from a nearby aid station. Her presence, a rare woman among paratroopers, stirred both respect and unease. If that signal's real, it's civilians. Maybe kids, she argued, her accent thick with urgency, amplifying Eddie's resolve. But Sergeant Victor Malone, the Chicago veteran with a scar across his jaw, scoffed bitterly. Civilians, or spies, you're green, Dubois, and Crow's greener. This ain't a rescue op, it's survival. Private Hank Larson, the Minnesotan sharpshooter, stayed quiet but watched Eddie closely, his silence a vote of cautious trust. The group's division deepened the psychological tension, each member wrestling with fear and duty in the snow's relentless embrace. The moral dilemma crystallized: defy Gorman's orders and risk court-martial to pursue the signal, or stay put and let the mystery haunt him forever. Eddie's fingers traced the coordinates in his notebook, the numbers a lifeline to purpose amid the war's chaos. Memories of his brother's death, caught in a firefight he couldn't escape, fueled his drive, but also his fear of leading others to the same fate. Walsh, sensing the turmoil, offered a reluctant compromise. Pitch it to Gorman again, but we need proof it's not a setup. Eddie nodded, the weight of leadership settling unasked on his shoulders. A strong event erupted, thrusting the squad into their first direct clash. As Eddie prepared to reapproach Gorman, a German recon squad, 6 figures cloaked in white camouflage, emerged from the blizzard, their rifles glinting under moonlight. The encounter was sudden, a heart-stopping moment in the forest's eerie quiet. Malone hissed orders, and the squad dropped behind a snowbank, Eddie's radio clattering softly. The Germans, unaware, paused to check a map, their whispers inaudible but deliberate. Eddie's heart pounded, the signal's coordinates burning in his mind. Were these scouts linked to St. Loup? Malone signaled a silent retreat, but Dubois, impulsive, shifted to adjust her medical pack, snapping a twig. The sound was a thunderclap in the stillness, drawing the enemy's gaze. The clash was swift but tense, a desperate evasion to avoid full engagement. Larson's sharpshooter instincts kicked in. He lobbed a smoke grenade from their dwindling supply, cloaking their retreat in a gray haze. The squad scrambled back, boots crunching through ice, but the Germans pursued, their shouts slicing through the wind. Eddie clutched the radio, its weight a reminder of the mission he couldn't abandon. They dove into a shallow ravine, snow cascading around them, narrowly escaping as the patrol lost their trail. The encounter left the group rattled, Malone's glare cutting into Eddie. That's what your ghost hunt gets us. Too close for comfort. The internal conflict flared, threatening to splinter the squad. Dubois defended Eddie, her voice sharp. If we ignore that signal, we're abandoning hope. Malone's retort was venomous. Hope's a luxury we don't have. Dramatic twists deepened the rising conflict, building a sense of impending doom. Back at the foxhole, Eddie decoded a new fragment of the signal, caught during the chaos. Cellar, 10 souls, time runs out. The specificity, 10 lives, electrified him, but also heightened the stakes. Walsh, now half convinced, uncovered a map discrepancy in their outdated charts, hinting St. Loup's ruins might conceal a forgotten bunker. But the discovery came with a cost. Gorman, informed of the near miss with the patrol, summoned Eddie for a dressing down. You're stirring trouble, Crow. One more stunt and you're confined. The threat was a gut punch, amplifying Eddie's isolation. His squad's support wavered, Larson's silence now uncertain, Malone's hostility overt. The psychological napuga mounted as night deepened, the blizzard intensifying into a whiteout that buried their tracks, but also their hopes. Eddie's mind churned, hallucinations creeping in, the woman's voice morphing into his mother's, pleading for her lost son. He confided in Dubois, whose own loss, a cousin in the French resistance, mirrored his grief. We owe it to the living to try, she said, her words a fragile anchor. But Malone's dissent grew bolder, whispering to Larson about splitting off to rejoin the main line. Crows chasing fairy tales, he muttered, sowing seeds of mutiny. The squad's unity hung by a thread, the internal conflict as perilous as the enemy outside. A final twist propelled the tension forward. As Eddie tuned the radio one last time, a new voice broke through. Not the woman's, but a child's, faint and trembling. Please, they're coming. The transmission cut abruptly, replaced by German chatter on the same frequency, suggesting interception. Had the enemy traced the signal? The squad froze, the forest's silence now menacing. Eddie's eyes met Walsh's, then Dubois'. the weight of the child's plea reigniting his resolve. But Malone stood, rifle in hand, ready to walk. "I'm done with this madness," he declared, forcing Eddie to confront the rift head-on. "Stay, and we find them together," Eddie urged, voice steady despite the fear. As snow swirled, a distant rumble, not artillery, but something heavier, echoed through the trees. Tanks, reinforcements, or something tied to St. Lou's mystery. The sense of something monumental loomed, the squad teetering on the edge of decision, the child's voice a haunting call into the blizzard's heart. As a bone-chilling gust swept through the Ardennes, carrying the faint clank of tank treads that turned Private Eddie Crow's blood to ice, the squad's decision to pursue the Phantom Signal from Saint-Lô plunged them into a maze of peril where every shadow held a threat. The frozen forest around Bastogne in December 1944 was a battleground of survival, the 101st Airborne Division's lines battered by the German offensive in the Battle of the Bulge. Eddie's insistence on investigating the mysterious radio plea, a child's voice now echoing in his mind, had sparked dissent, and the consequences of his defiance were immediate. Lieutenant Gorman's trust waned, and the squad's unity frayed like their frostbitten gloves. The blizzard's whiteout cloaked their movements, but also their fates, as new challenges and a relentless pursuit pushed them toward a looming crisis. The squad, Eddie, Corporal Danny Walsh, Private Marie Dubois, Private Hank Larson, and the rebellious Sergeant Victor Malone, huddled in the ravine, their breath forming fleeting clouds in the sub-zero air. Eddie's choice to rally them for the mission, defying Gorman's orders, bore its first bitter fruit. Gorman had stripped him of radio duties pending review, assigning Walsh to monitor communications instead. The demotion stung, a tangible consequence that isolated Eddie further, his glasses fogging as he clutched the notebook with St. Lou's coordinates. "I got us into this," he whispered to Walsh, guilt gnawing like the cold. Walsh, his New York edge softened by the child's plea, shrugged. "You're in deep now, kid. Prove it's worth it." But Malone's glare was unforgiving. "You're leading us to a grave, Crow." New challenges emerged, testing their resolve. The coordinates pointed to a dense thicket 3 miles north, a trek through contested woods, riddled with German patrols and rumored minefields. As they moved, the snow deepened, slowing their pace and sapping strength. A trap materialized, a tripwire buried under snow, glinting faintly in Larson's flashlight beam. "Mines," he hissed, halting the group. Eddie's heart pounded. One misstep could end them. Dubois, her medic's instincts sharp, marked the wire with a scarf, guiding them around. But the detour cost time. Time they didn't have with tanks rumbling closer. The forest itself became an adversary, branches snapping underfoot like warnings, amplifying the psychological tension. Eddie's mind churned, haunted by his brother's last words. "Don't play hero." Was this heroism or hubris? A strong moment of tension erupted with a sudden pursuit. As they navigated a frozen stream, its ice creaking ominously, German voices echoed from the ridge above. Another patrol, drawn by their earlier clash. The squad dropped low, snow soaking their uniforms, but Malone's impatience boiled over. "This is your fault, Crow," he whispered fiercely, his rifle twitching toward the sound. The pursuit tightened, the enemy's lanterns cutting through the blizzard like knives. Eddie's critical decision under pressure loomed. Split the group to confuse the hunters or stay together and risk capture. He chose unity, signaling a silent crawl along the stream bed, but Dubois' pack snagged, the noise drawing shouts. The chase was on, boots crunching in pursuit, forcing a desperate sprint through the trees. Larson's sharpshooting bought time, firing warning shots into the air, scattering the patrol momentarily, but the effort drained their scant ammunition. An unexpected ally emerged, twisting the narrative. Mid-flight, they stumbled into a figure huddled in a snow-covered ditch, a Belgian resistance fighter, Claire Vasseur, gaunt and frostbitten, her eyes sharp with survival's edge. Speaking halting English, she confirmed St. Lou's signal. "My group, trapped in cellar. Germans know." Her presence was a double-edged sword. Her knowledge of hidden paths offered hope, but her tattered coat and evasive answers raised Malone's suspicions. She's a liability, he growled, but Dubois, fluent in French, vouched for her, sensing truth in Claire's desperation. Eddie, torn between caution and compassion, accepted her guidance, but the alliance strained the squad further. Claire led them toward a concealed trail, whispering of a bunker beneath Saint-Lou's ruins, but warned of German sentries guarding the approach. The first consequences of Eddie's choices deepened the rift. Malone, pushed to his limit, confronted him during a brief pause in a pine grove. "You're not our CO, Crow. This ghost chase ends now." His mutiny threatened to split the group. Larson hesitated, torn by loyalty, while Walsh backed Eddie, citing the child's voice. Dubois mediated, her voice steady. "We've come too far to turn back." The standoff was a psychological crucible, Eddie's leadership tested as he faced Malone's defiance. 10 souls, Vic. Can you live with ignoring that? The question hung, unanswered, as Claire's urgent gesture cut them off. Tank tracks scarred the snow ahead, fresh and ominous. Dramatic twists heightened the sense of impending catastrophe. Claire revealed a hidden radio in her pack, its frequency matching Eddie's signal, confirming survivors but also suggesting German interception. "They've been hunting us," she admitted, her voice breaking. The revelation rocked Eddie. Had he led them into a trap? His mind fractured, hallucinations creeping in, the child's voice blending with his brother's, accusing him of recklessness. The squad pressed on, following Claire's trail, but a new challenge struck, a collapsed bridge over a frozen ravine, forcing a perilous climb down and up icy rocks. Walsh slipped, saved only by Eddie's quick grab, the near loss a stark reminder of their fragility. The effort exhausted them, morale crumbling as snow blinded their path. The pursuit intensified, building to a greater crisis. German shouts grew louder, accompanied by the growl of a panzer engine, closer than expected. The squad ducked into a hollow, Claire's knowledge guiding them to a camouflaged overhang, but the tank's vibrations shook snow from branches, exposing their tracks. Eddie's radio, now in Walsh's hands, caught a garbled transmission. "St. Lou, overrun, hurry!" The child's voice again, now panicked, cut off by static. The urgency electrified Eddie, but Malone's rebellion peaked. "We're done, Crow. I'm taking Larson back." The squad teetered on collapse, Eddie's leadership hanging by a thread. As they argued, a chilling twist sealed the tension. Claire spotted a flare arcing over St. Lou's coordinates, not Allied but German, a signal of encirclement. Had the survivors been found? The forest seemed to close in, the blizzard's howl masking dangers but amplifying dread. Eddie faced a pivotal choice: push forward to the flare's source, risking ambush, or retreat and abandon the signal's souls. With the panzer's rumble shaking the earth and Malone's foot poised to leave, Eddie's voice cut through. "We go, or we're no better than the enemy." The squad's eyes locked on him, the flare's glow a beacon or a lure drawing them into the crisis's heart, where truth and trap waited in the frozen shadows. As the German flare's crimson glow bled through the blizzard, casting eerie shadows across the snow-draped ruins of Saint-Lou, Private Eddie Crow realized the Phantom Signal's source was no myth but a trap sprung, thrusting his squad into a heart-stopping crisis. The frozen woods near Bastogne, December 1944, pulsed with the battle of the Bulge's relentless grind. The 101st Airborne Division's line stretched to breaking. Eddie's defiance of orders to pursue the mysterious radio plea, a child's cry for help, had led them here, to the edge of a razed village where the air reeked of damp stone and betrayal. The flare confirmed Claire's warning. Germans knew of the survivors, and the squad's mission to reach them now teetered on the brink of disaster, forcing Eddie into a choice that could shatter everything. The main event unfolded with brutal clarity. A mission turned ambush. The squad's advance into Saint-Lou's skeletal remains a descent into peril. Claire Vasseur, the Belgian resistance fighter, led them to a crumbling church. Its steeple toppled, where the signal's coordinates pinpointed a hidden cellar. But as they approached, German sentries materialized from the ruins, their rifles trained on the approaches. Eddie's squad, Corporal Danny Walsh, Private Marie Dubois, Private Hank Larson and the rebellious Sergeant Victor Malone dropped into a snow-filled ditch, hearts pounding. The flare's light revealed a chilling truth. Claire's radio, matching the signal's frequency, had been intercepted, her group's location compromised. Her eyes, wide with guilt, met Eddie's. "They tortured my brother," he told them, she whispered, unveiling a betrayal born of coercion, not malice. Malone's rage erupted, his Chicago growl low but venomous. "She's led us to a slaughter, Crow." Eddie's hard choice loomed, the psychological tension of vice around his heart. Abandon Claire and the mission, retreating to safety with a fractured squad, or press forward to the cellar, risking capture for the 10 souls trapped within. His brother's warning, "Don't play hero," clashed with the child's plea echoing in his mind, a haunting refrain that stirred memories of his mother's grief. Dubois, her medic's resolve unshaken, urged action. "We're here for them, not us." But Malone, teetering on mutiny, gripped his rifle, ready to bolt. "This ends now, Crow." Eddie's glasses fogged with sweat despite the cold, his mind fracturing under visions of failure, bodies buried in snow, his squad lost to his folly. Intense events cascaded, driving the crisis to emotional peaks. A dramatic Zeitkonie shifted the tide. As they crept toward the church, a German sentry spotted Walsh's silhouette, shouting an alarm. The squad scattered, diving behind shattered walls as lanterns swept the ruins. Eddie, clutching the radio, led Claire and Dubois to a side entrance while Malone and Larson covered the rear. The confrontation was breathless. Warning shots cracked through the air, snow erupting around them, but the sentries held fire, perhaps awaiting orders. In the chaos, Eddie spotted a trapdoor beneath a pew, the cellar's entrance. "There," he hissed, prying it open, revealing a dark stairwell where faint whimpers echoed. A child's voice, real and alive. The discovery electrified him, but also heightened the stakes. Entering meant entrapment if the Germans closed in. The Napuga soared as a dramatic Poryanok unfolded. Claire, desperate to redeem her betrayal, volunteered to distract the sentry, slipping a stolen German flare from her pack. "I'll draw them off," she whispered, her face resolute despite trembling hands. Eddie protested, the emotional weight crushing. Her sacrifice mirrored his brother's last stand, but Claire's resolve held. "For my people." She ignited the flare, its red glow arcing across the village, pulling the sentry's attention westward. The diversion worked, but at a cost. Claire vanished into the ruins, her fate uncertain as shouts followed her trail. Eddie's heart sank, the loss a fresh wound, but the open trapdoor beckoned, the child's cry now clear. "Help, please!" The mission intensified, emotional peaks cresting in the descent. Eddie led Dubois and Walsh down the icy stairs, Larson and Malone reluctantly following, their trust in him paper-thin. The cellar was a damp tomb, lit by a flickering oil lamp, revealing 10 civilians, women, children, an elderly man, huddled in fear. A young girl, no older than 8, clutched a battered radio, the source of the signal. "You came," she whispered, her eyes wide with hope, piercing Eddie's soul. But the reunion was cut short. A German shout from above, boots stomping toward the church. The sentries had regrouped. Claire's diversion, only a temporary reprieve. The squad faced a new crisis: barricade the cellar and risk being trapped, or flee with the civilians through a rumored back tunnel Claire had mentioned, its existence uncertain. Eddie's critical decision under pressure defined the moment. Malone urged retreat. "We're sitting ducks here." But Dubois, checking the civilians' frail conditions, countered, "They can't outrun a patrol." Eddie's mind raced, hallucinations creeping, his brother's voice warning, "You'll lose them all." Yet the girl's gaze anchored him, a mirror to his own lost innocence. He chose the tunnel, ordering Larson to scout ahead with his sharpshooter's eye. The passage was narrow, crumbling, its walls slick with ice, but it promised escape, if it existed. As they herded the civilians forward, the elderly man revealed a twist. Claire's brother. "He's with them, forced to hunt us." The betrayal deepened, a family torn by war's cruelty, amplifying Eddie's guilt for trusting Claire. The emotional pinnacle came as the tunnel shook with distant explosions, Allied artillery, mistimed, raining chaos above. Dust fell, the civilians panicking, the girl clinging to Eddie's hand. "Don't leave us," she pleaded, her voice a knife through his doubts. Walsh, struggling with the radio, caught a faint Allied transmission. "Hold Bastogne, relief inbound." Hope flickered, but the German boots grew louder, lanterns flashing at the cellar's entrance. Larson returned, breathless. "Tunnel's real, but it's tight. Move fast." The squad pushed forward, the civilians' fear palpable. Eddie's leadership tested as Malone muttered dissent. A final twist heightened the crisis. A muffled cry echoed behind. Claire, wounded but alive, staggering into the tunnel. Had she escaped, or led the enemy to them? The Napuga reached its zenith, the squad and civilians trapped between pursuit and an uncertain path. Eddie's choice to trust the tunnel propelled them forward, but the Germans' shouts grew closer, their lanterns casting monstrous shadows. The crisis point resolved in a desperate flight, the child's hand in Eddie's, a fragile anchor as the tunnel narrowed, leading to consequences unknown. Had Claire's return saved them, or doomed them to a deeper trap? The frozen air carried the weight of their gamble, the cellar's secret a beacon or a grave, pulling them toward the climax. As the tunnel's icy walls closed in like a frozen tomb, a sudden betrayal shattered Private Eddie Crow's fragile trust, when Claire's brother, a shadowed figure in German uniform, emerged from the darkness, his rifle aimed at the squad's heart. The claustrophobic passage beneath Saint-Lou's ruins, December 1944, amplified the battle of the Bulge's relentless dread. The 101st Airborne Divisions stand at Bastogne, hanging by a thread. Eddie's mission to rescue the cellar's survivors, a child's radio plea driving him, had plunged them into this subterranean trap, where new threats and losses escalated the stakes to breaking point. The air, thick with damp and fear, carried the weight of his choices, each step deeper into the tunnel, intensifying the psychological pressure as the squad faced a crisis that could bury them all. The conflict surged with fresh revelations, each a blow to Eddie's resolve. Claire's confession about her brother Julian, a coerced conscript now hunting them, unveiled a personal betrayal that cut deeper than the cold. The squad, Eddie, Corporal Danny Walsh, Private Marie Dubois, Private Hank Larson, and the defiant Sergeant Victor Malone, herded 10 civilians, including the young girl who'd sent the signal, through the narrow passage. The girl, named Elise by Dubois, clung to Eddie's hand, her radio now silent in her pack. But Julian's appearance, his face a haunted mirror of Claire's, confirmed the worst. He'd led the German patrol to the cellar, his loyalty torn by threats to his family. "I had no choice," he whispered in French, voice breaking as Claire pleaded for mercy. Malone's rage boiled over. "He's a traitor, Crow. End this now." The standoff, lit by flickering flashlights, was a powder keg, Eddie's leadership teetering as he faced Julian's trembling barrel. Psychological pressure crushed Eddie, his mind fracturing under the weight of command. Hallucinations crept in, the child's plea morphing into his brother's dying gasp, accusing him of leading others to doom. His glasses fogged, blurring Julian's face into a ghostly echo of his own guilt. The moral dilemma intensified. Shoot Julian to secure the group, or trust Claire's plea and risk further betrayal. Memories of his mother's grief, waiting for news that never came, fueled his hesitation. Dubois, her medic's compassion strained, whispered, "He's a victim too." But Malone's Chicago grit demanded action. One wrong move and we're dead. Eddie's heart pounded, the tunnel's confines mirroring his shrinking options, the civilians' fearful whimpers amplifying the stakes. Strong events erupted, gripping the viewer in suspense. A heroic act shifted the dynamic. As Julian wavered, Elise, the girl, stepped forward, her small voice cutting through the tension. "Don't hurt him. He helped us hide." Her revelation that Julian had secretly supplied the cellar with food stunned the squad, a twist that humanized the traitor. Eddie lowered his weapon, choosing mercy, but the act cost them. Julian's hesitation drew shouts from the pursuing patrol, now flooding the tunnel's entrance. The Germans, led by a stern officer, advanced, their lanterns casting monstrous shadows. Eddie ordered a desperate retreat deeper into the passage, but a new threat loomed. The tunnel's ceiling groaned, weakened by artillery above, threatening collapse. Larson, scouting ahead, shouted, "It's unstable! Hurry!" The escalation intensified with a dramatic loss. As they scrambled forward, the elderly civilian, weakened by hunger, collapsed, his heart failing under the strain. Dubois knelt, her efforts futile, the loss a gut punch that silenced the group. "Keep moving," Eddie urged, his voice cracking, Elise's sobs echoing in the dark. The civilian's death was a stark reminder of their fragility, piling grief onto Eddie's shoulders. Walsh, carrying the radio, caught a faint Allied signal. Relief 2 hours out, but the Germans' pursuit drowned hope, their boots splashing in the tunnel's icy puddles. A sudden cave-in behind them, triggered by the artillery's vibrations, sealed the entrance, trapping them with Julian, but buying time. The loss of retreat heightened the peril, the tunnel now a one-way path to salvation or doom. A powerful twist deepened the crisis. Julian revealed a hidden fork ahead, a secondary passage leading to a surface exit near Allied lines, but it was narrower, riskier, and untested. "I've used it once," he admitted, his voice laced with shame. Malone scoffed, "Another trap." But Claire vouched for him, her desperation palpable. Eddie faced a critical choice under pressure: trust Julian's route, risking betrayal, or stay on the main path, facing certain pursuit. His mind reeled, hallucinations intensifying. His brother's face in the shadows, warning, "You'll fail them." Elise's hand in his grounded him, her trust a fragile lifeline. "You came for us," she whispered, reigniting his purpose. He chose the fork, ordering Larson to lead, the decision splitting Malone further. "You're gambling our lives, Crow." Intense events propelled the suspense, keeping viewers on edge. The fork's passage was a nightmare, ice-slicked, barely wide enough for one, forcing the civilians to crawl single file. Walsh's radio slipped, cracking against a rock, its static now intermittent, severing their link to hope. The pursuit grew louder, the Germans navigating the cave-in's debris, their officers' commands chillingly clear. A heroic moment shone through. Dubois, lagging to help a struggling mother, nearly fell into a crevice, saved by Eddie's quick grab, his arms burning as he pulled her back. The act mended some trust, even Malone nodding grudgingly, but the effort slowed them, the enemy closing in. Claire, limping from her earlier wounds, urged Julian to guide faster, their sibling bond a flicker of redemption amid the chaos. New threats escalated the stakes, building to the climax. The fork's exit loomed, a faint light piercing the darkness, but a fresh discovery twisted the knife. German mines, hastily placed, lined the passage's end, their wires glinting in Larson's beam. "They knew we'd come this way," he hissed, confirming Julian's betrayal had deeper roots. The squad froze, the civilians' fear peaking, Elise's grip tightening on Eddie's hand. Psychological pressure crested, Eddie's vision blurred, his brother's voice screaming, "You led them to this." The mines demanded a choice: disarm them, risking detonation, or backtrack into the Germans' jaws. With shouts echoing closer, Eddie's resolve hardened, but a final twist sealed the tension. Julian stepped forward, offering to clear the mines. "I owe you," he said, his eyes pleading for forgiveness. Was it redemption or a final ruse? The tunnel shook again, the exit tantalizingly close, the squad teetering on the edge of annihilation as Eddie's decision loomed, propelling them toward a climax where trust and treachery would collide. As the tunnel's exit loomed like a frozen mirage, its faint light eclipsed by the muzzle flash of a German rifle, Private Eddie Crow dove to shield Elise, his body a barrier against the chaos as the climax of their desperate mission erupted in a storm of sacrifice and salvation. The icy passage beneath Saint-Lou's ruins, December 1944, pulsed with the battle of the Bulge's unrelenting pressure. the 101st Airborne Division's Bastogne perimeter, a distant hope. Eddie's quest to save the cellar's survivors, driven by a child's radio plea, had led them to this precipice, where Julian's offer to disarm the mines teetered between redemption and treachery. The air, thick with frost and fear, vibrated with the Germans' shouts, their lanterns closing in like a noose, forcing Eddie into a final, heart-wrenching choice that would define their fate. The culmination surged with relentless intensity, a cascade of Poryonak and Viteka that gripped the soul. Julian, Claire's coerced brother, knelt before the minefield, his hands trembling as he traced wires in the dim glow of Larson's flashlight. "I can do this," he whispered, his French accent heavy with resolve, but Malone's Chicago growl cut through. "One wrong move and we're done." Eddie's squad, Corporal Danny Walsh, Private Marie Dubois, Private Hank Larson, and the defiant Sergeant Victor Malone, herded the 10 civilians, including young Elise in a tight huddle, their breaths clouding the icy air. The Germans' boots echoed closer, their officers' commands sharp, amplifying the Napuga. Eddie's choice was brutal: trust Julian's redemption and risk detonation, or disarm the mines himself, exposing the group to pursuit. His brother's warning, "Don't play hero," clashed with Elise's trusting gaze, her small hand gripping his like a lifeline. A dramatic twist ignited the action. Julian, working frantically, triggered a warning click. A dud mine, but the sound froze the squad, heart stopping as dust fell from the trembling ceiling. The near miss was a gut punch, Malone lunging to pull Julian back, but Claire's plea halted him. "He's all I have." The emotional peak crested. Eddie, his glasses fogged with sweat, saw his brother's face in Julian's, a mirror of guilt and hope. He nodded, letting Julian continue, but ordered Walsh to ready a fallback. The civilians, frail and terrified, whispered prayers, Elise's voice a soft hum that anchored Eddie's fracturing psyche. The tunnel shook again, artillery above rattling the earth, a reminder of the war's indiscriminate wrath. Intense events propelled the climax, a finale protostoyania that held viewers breathless. As Julian disarmed the first mine, a German scout breached the tunnel's end, spotting the group. "Halt!" he shouted, raising his rifle. Eddie acted instinctively, shoving Elise behind a rock and tossing a smoke grenade. There last, cloaking the passage in choking haze. The scouts' shots went wide, but the alarm drew the patrol, their lanterns converging like predators. Larson, his sharpshooter's eyes steady, fired a warning shot, scattering the enemy momentarily. The squad pushed forward, Julian clearing a second mine, but a new threat emerged. The tunnel's exit was a narrow ledge above a ravine, snow-slicked and exposed to a German outpost above. The escape demanded a leap of faith. Each civilian carried across a gap where one slip meant death. A heroic samopojertva defined the emotional core. Claire, limping from her earlier wounds, saw the civilians struggle and made a stand. "I'll hold them," she declared, pulling a pistol from her coat, a resistance relic. Eddie protested, the pain of her earlier diversion raw, but Claire's eyes burned with purpose. For Elise, for Julian. She fired into the haze, drawing the patrol's attention, her shots echoing as she vanished into the tunnel's depths. The sacrifice bought seconds, but the cost tore at Eddie, another soul risked for his mission. Julian, tears streaming, cleared the final mine, shouting, "Go!" The squad surged toward the ledge, Eddie carrying Elise, Walsh supporting a mother, Dubois guiding the rest. Malone, his defiance softening, helped Larson across, their unity reborn in the crucible. Dramatic polarity kept the tension unrelenting. The ledge was a nightmare. Wind howled, snow blinding, the ravine below a yawning void. As they crossed, a German shout from above revealed the outpost, its machine guns swiveling. Eddie's heart stopped, but a twist saved them. Julian, redeeming his betrayal, threw a rock to mimic movement below, drawing fire away. The distraction worked, but Julian collapsed, exhausted, his hands bloodied from the mine's jagged edges. Eddie pulled him up, the act a silent forgiveness, but the outpost regrouped, their lanterns sweeping the ledge. The civilians, frail and slow, struggled. Dubois nearly slipped, saved by Malone's quick grab. his gruff nod a rare olive branch. The emotional peak soared. Eddie's vision blurred, his brother's voice fading, replaced by Elise's whisper, "You're my hero." The critical moment of choice arrived as the ledge narrowed, the exit a mere crack leading to Allied lines. German shouts grew frantic, the patrol navigating the smoke. Eddie faced the ultimate gamble, lead the group through the crack, risking a bottleneck, or make a stand to ensure the civilians escape. His mind fractured, hallucinations peaking, his mother's face in the snow, pleading for him to survive. Together, he declared, choosing flight but ordering Larson to cover the rear. The sharpshooter nodded, his rifle steady despite frostbite. As they squeezed through, Elise's radio slipped, clattering into the ravine, a symbolic loss that stung, but her hand in Eddie's kept him moving. The climax's intensity peaked in a breathless vitecha. The crack opened to a snowfield, Allied flares flickering in the distance, Reyes's relief force tantalizingly close. But the Germans emerged from the tunnel, their officer shouting orders. Eddie's group sprinted, civilians stumbling, the squad shielding them. A final twist. Claire's pistol shots echoed behind, suggesting she still fought, delaying the pursuit. The sacrifice galvanized them, but the cost loomed. Claire's fate unknown, Julian's redemption incomplete. Larson's covering fire held the line, his shots precise, buying time as the group reached a ditch near Allied trenches. Eddie collapsed, Elise in his arms, the squad battered but alive, the flares guiding them home. The consequences loomed immediate. Gorman's wrath awaited, the mission's delays risking reprimand. Eddie's heart pounded, Elise's gratitude a balm but not absolution. The civilian survival was a fragile victory, shadowed by losses, Claire's uncertain fate, the elderly man's death, the squad's fractured trust. The climax resolved in a desperate arrival, leading to the falling action's reckoning, the fire in the frost a testament to courage's cost, propelling them toward a resolution where Eddie's choices would face judgment and the Phantom Signal's truth would linger like a ghost in the snow. As the first pale light of dawn broke through the blizzard's veil, revealing the battered outlines of Allied trenches near Bastogne, Private Eddie Crow collapsed into a snow-dusted ditch, Elise's small form still cradled in his arms, the weight of their escape's consequences settling like the frost on his shoulders. The Ardennes Forest, December 1944, remained a frozen crucible of the Battle of the Bulge. The 101st Airborne Divisions stand a testament to endurance. The climax's frantic flight from Saint-Lou's tunnel had delivered the squad and civilians to safety. But at a cost, Claire's sacrifice, Julian's uncertain redemption, and the elderly civilian's death left scars deeper than the cold. Eddie's mission, driven by a phantom radio signal, now faced immediate reckoning. The squad's survival, a fragile victory, overshadowed by Gorman's looming judgment and the emotional toll that threatened to unravel them. The immediate consequences unfolded in the chaotic embrace of Allied lines. Lieutenant Gorman met them at the perimeter, his face a mask of relief and fury under a frost-rimmed helmet. "You're alive, Crow, but you've cost us," he snapped, his Ohio drawl sharp. The mission's delay had strained the 506th's defenses, forcing reallocations that left gaps in the line. Eddie, his glasses cracked from the tunnel's ordeal, handed Elise to a medic, her grateful nod piercing his heart. The civilians, 9 now, after the elderly man's loss, were whisked to a field hospital, their frail forms bundled in blankets. Julian, under guard as a defector, faced interrogation, his role in disarming the mines earning wary respect but not freedom. Claire's absence gnawed at Eddie, her pistol shots echoing in his mind. Had she survived, or paid the ultimate price? Eddie coped with physical consequences first, his body battered by the trek. Medics bandaged his frostbitten fingers and a gash from the tunnel's rocks, each touch a reminder of the ledge's peril. Exhaustion dragged at him, his limbs heavy as he slumped in a tent, the warmth of a stove foreign after days of cold. Emotional scars cut deeper, nightmares replayed the tunnel's collapse, Elise's plea, Claire's flare. His brother's voice haunted him. "You're no hero, kid," amplifying guilt over pushing the squad beyond orders. Dubois, her medic's hands steady despite her own fatigue, sat beside him, offering a canteen. "You saved them, Eddie. That's what counts." Her words were a lifeline, but doubt lingered. His leadership a burden he hadn't sought. Recovery events sustained interest, weaving hope with new challenges. The squad regrouped around a makeshift fire, their faces gaunt but bonds reforming. Walsh, his New York wit returning, clapped Eddie's shoulder. "You're a stubborn bastard, but you got us through." Malone, his defiance softened, offered a rare nod. "Didn't think you had it in you, Crow." Larson, nursing frostbitten toes, remained quiet, his sharpshooters calm, a steady presence. The civilian survival sparked whispers among the paratroopers, tales of the ghost signal, spreading, earning Eddie reluctant admiration. But a new challenge arose. A German counterattack loomed, intelligence reporting panzers massing nearby. Gorman tasked the squad with reinforcing a forward outpost, a grueling march despite their exhaustion. Eddie, limping but resolute, led the way, Elisa's face in his mind urging him forward. Emotional coping deepened, Eddie grappling with the mission's toll. In a quiet moment at the outpost, overlooking snow-covered hills where artillery flashes flickered, he confided in Walsh. "I keep hearing her. Claire, the kid. Did I do enough?" Walsh, lighting a cigarette, exhaled slowly. "You did more than most." The exchange eased Eddie's guilt, but a letter from his mother, delivered by a supply drop, reopened wounds. "Come home whole," she'd written, unaware of his brother's shadow driving him. Eddie penned a reply, his words halting. "I'm trying, Ma. For them." The act was cathartic, but the psychological pressure persisted. Hallucinations of Claire's flare blending with his brother's face, questioning his worth. New events propelled the falling action, maintaining suspense. A skirmish at the outpost tested their recovery. German scouts probed the line, forcing a tense standoff. Larson's sharpshooting held them at bay, his precision a testament to the squad's resilience, but the clash drained their dwindling ammo. Eddie, reinstated to radio duties after Gorman's grudging acknowledgement of the rescue, caught a faint Allied signal. General Patton's Third Army was breaking through, hours away. The news sparked hope, but also urgency. Hold the line until relief, or face annihilation. Dubois tended to a wounded paratrooper from the skirmish, her focus inspiring Eddie to push past doubt. "We're not done yet," she said, her French accent firm, reigniting his purpose. A dramatic event heightened interest. Julian, cleared by interrogators, joined the squad under watch, his knowledge of German tactics proving vital. He revealed a hidden panzer route, shifting the outpost's defenses, a redemption that mended some rifts. Malone, still wary, muttered, "He's earned a chance, not trust." The act stirred Eddie's reflections. Mercy had saved lives, but at what cost? Elise, now safe in the hospital, sent a drawing via a medic. A crude radio, Eddie's figure beside it. The gesture was a balm, but Claire's fate remained a shadow. Rumors of a captured resistance fighter reached them, unconfirmed but chilling. Eddie's heart ached, the uncertainty a fresh wound. The build to Razviazgi intensified with a final challenge. Gorman summoned Eddie to a command tent where officers debated the rescue's impact. "You saved lives, Crow, but you risked the line," Gorman said, his tone softer but firm. "Command wants answers." The inquiry loomed, a potential reprimand threatening Eddie's future, yet testimonials from the civilians, relayed through Dubois, praised his courage, swaying opinions. The tension was palpable, Eddie defending his choice. "That signal was human, sir. We had to answer." Gorman's nod was grudging, hinting at leniency, but not absolution. The squad's unity strengthened, Malone offering a rare cigarette. "You're all right, kid." The gesture, small but profound, signaled healing. As Patton's tanks rumbled closer, their engines a distant promise, Eddie stood at the outpost, staring into the snow where Saint-Loux's ghosts lingered. Physical recovery began. Bandages, rest, but emotional wounds endured. Elisa's drawing in his pocket, a reminder of purpose. New challenges loomed, holding the line, facing judgment, but the squad's bond, forged in fire, held firm. The falling action wove toward resolution, Eddie's choices a beacon in the frost, guiding them to a reckoning where the phantom signal's truth would shape their legacy, the dawn's silence heavy with lessons of sacrifice and hope. Years after the snows of Bastogne melted into memory, Private Eddie Crow, now a civilian schoolteacher in Boston, stood at his classroom window in the autumn of 1955, watching leaves fall like echoes of the war that never fully left him. The Battle of the Bulge, December 1944, had faded into history. The 101st Airborne Division's stand at Bastogne, a legend of resilience. But for Eddie, the long-term consequences of his Phantom Signal mission shaped a life forever marked by sacrifice and redemption. At 33, his wire-rimmed glasses now thicker, his hands still bore faint scars from frostbite, a physical reminder of the tunnel's icy grip. The emotional scars ran deeper. Claire's uncertain fate, Elise's saved life, and Julian's redemption haunted his quiet moments, weaving a legacy of courage tempered by loss. The Ardennes whispers lingered, a profound testament to the cost of answering a call in the heart of war. The aftermath unfolded gradually, reshaping Eddie's path in ways both subtle and seismic. Physically, the mission's toll lingered. His fingers stiffened in cold weather, a legacy of the frostbitten trek, and a slight limp from the tunnel's rocks slowed his stride. Doctors urged rest, but Eddie, ever driven, channeled his energy into rebuilding. After Bastogne's relief by Patton's Third Army, he returned to Boston in 1945, discharged with a commendation for valor, but no promotion. The inquiry into his defiance had seen to that. The reprimand, though softened by Gorman's reluctant praise, closed military doors, pushing Eddie toward teaching, where his puzzle-solving mind found purpose in history lessons. His students, captivated by his understated tales, saw a man shaped by war's crucible, his quiet demeanor belying a heart forged in fire. Emotionally, the consequences were a slow burn. Nightmares persisted. Claire's flare, the tunnel's collapse, Elise's plea, waking him in sweat-soaked sheets. His mother, now graying, sensed the shadows, her embraces a silent anchor. Therapy, rare in the post-war years, came through letters exchanged with his squad. Walsh, now a mechanic in New York, wrote of their shared survival. "You gave us purpose, kid." Larson, farming in Minnesota, sent photos of his family, crediting Eddie's leadership for his return. Malone, softened by time, visited once, his Chicago gruffness yielding to a toast, "To the ones we saved." These bonds mended Eddie's guilt, but Claire's fate remained a wound. Rumors of her survival in a resistance network unconfirmed. Her pistol shots, a ghost in his dreams. Elise, adopted by a Belgian-American family in Chicago, sent letters yearly, her growth into a bright teenager a beacon of hope. "You're my hero, Monsieur Eddie," she wrote, her words a salve for his fractured psyche. Professionally, the mission's fallout redirected Eddie's life. The military's rebuke barred a career he'd once dreamed of, but teaching became his redemption. His classroom, lined with maps of Europe, echoed the Ardennes lessons: compassion over orders, humanity over survival. He volunteered with veterans groups, advocating for mental health support, his own struggles fueling empathy. Community work, organizing drives for war orphans, linked him to Julian, now a translator in post-war Belgium, rebuilding his life with Claire's memory. Their correspondence, filled with gratitude, affirmed Eddie's choice. "Your trust saved more than lives." Yet doubt lingered in quiet moments. Had he risked too much? The phantom signal, once a mystery, became a metaphor for his life's calling, listening for the faint cries others ignored. The civilian's legacies intertwined with Eddie's, deepening the moral resonance. Elisa's letters, filled with drawings of radios and snow, kept Saint-Loup alive, her resilience a mirror to Eddie's own. Julian's work, aiding reconstruction, bridged their past, his redemption a testament to mercy's power. Dubois, now as nurse in Boston, visited often, her French accent softening as she shared stories of healing veterans. You taught me we fight for the living, she said, their friendship a quiet victory. Malone's rare letters, postmarked from Chicago, spoke of mentoring young soldiers, his cynicism replaced by purpose. These connections wove a tapestry of impact. Eddie's mission, though costly, had rippled outward, saving souls and shaping futures. Family became Eddie's anchor, grounding the aftermath in love. His marriage to Anna, a librarian met at a veterans event, brought two children, twins named Claire and Daniel, honoring the past. Teaching his son and daughter about courage, he shared edited tales of Bastogne, Elise's drawing framed on his desk. "Why'd you go, Dad?" his son asked once, prompting a profound reply. "Because someone called, and I had to answer." The answer encapsulated the moral. Compassion, even at great risk, preserves the soul in war's darkness. Anna, sensing his lingering shadows, encouraged journaling, his pages filled with reflections. The signal wasn't just a voice, it was a test of who we choose to be. In later years, the ending deepened, insight piercing through time. By the 1960s, Eddie traveled to Bastogne with his family, standing in the rebuilt Saint-Lô, its church restored but scars visible. Elise, now a young woman, joined them, her embrace a tearful reunion that closed a circle. "You gave me a life," she said, her words echoing the signal's plea. The visit, under a peaceful sky, crystallized Eddie's legacy, a man who answered a call, paying a price but gaining purpose. The war had taken much, his brother, his innocence, but given back a truth: humanity endures when we choose to hear the whispers in the storm. The moral resonated, profound and timeless. In war's chaos, answering a cry for help, even against odds, forges a legacy stronger than steel. Eddie's life, marked by quiet valor, became a lesson for his students, his children, and himself. Compassion's cost is heavy, but its reward is eternal. As he aged, his classroom tales inspired a new generation, the Ardennes as whispers, a call to listen, to act, to remain human. Inspired by true accounts from the Battle of the Bulge in 1944, where U.S. paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division risked their lives to aid civilians caught in the conflict, as documented in soldiers' letters and oral histories.